Hi everybody, it's Geordie from Geordie's Cards and I am back with episode 22 of my Shop Your Crafty Stash series. And today my random number generator selected a Mama Elephant stamp set and an MFT die, and I created this fun shaker card. So let me show you what I use. So first up I have the Mama Elephant Donut Treats stamp set, and I paired that with the Mama Elephant Milkshake stamp set. I adore these stamps. They're so cute, and the little critters are just adorable. Next up I have the MFT Inside and Out Stitched Square STAX dies, and I've decided to leave in some colouring today. I had started, but I've had a few requests recently to share my colouring, so I wanted to do that today. And forgive this first part, I had forgotten to zoom in, so I had to crop it down after filming, and it kind of, it doesn't quite fill the screen, but I wanted to show you what I'd done. So I'm using the E70 markers. I've got E79, E77, E74 and E71, and I'm just laying in from darkest to lightest, creating some shadows and then moving out to the lightest parts and then blending in. I'm going to do 2 coats with this, and then I will move on to the next part of my colouring. So yeah, I've had a few requests recently to show some colouring, so I decided to leave some in today. If it's not for you, obviously feel free to skip forward over all of this bit. I know some people love to watch the colouring, some people don't and find it a bit tedious. I'm on the fence. I learn a lot from watching others colour, so I always like to watch others, and that's how I kind of learned to use my Copic markers, from watching other people. Maureen Simon is a favourite of mine, who is on the Lawn Fawn and Sunny Studios design teams. She does some gorgeous colouring, and I followed her along for a long time now, and I learned a lot from watching her. So I know some people really love watching the colouring, but yeah, others are not so keen. So whatever your preference, just feel free to skip through if you don't fancy it. So while I've got those browns out, I'm just filling in all the other parts that I want to be brown. So some of my donuts are going to be kind of chocolate iced donuts. So I'm just colouring those in with those same brown markers. I love this colour combination for chocolate. I think it looks really, it's just perfect. It's really kind of that rich, dark looking chocolate, which I love. So next up, I'm going to move on to the glass itself. I'm using BG10 and BG11, and I'm just laying in a little bit of shadow. There's not much to see here, but one thing that I do, and you will see here in a second, is I use my BG10 marker and I colour all over the glass, so all over that brown that I've already laid down. And I just go over this a few times with that BG10 marker to create the look of glass. It still looks like the chocolate milk inside, but it has that kind of look of glass on the outside, or at least that's what I think it looks like. So that's what I do with this. Next up, all of my donuts are going to be coloured exactly the same way. I'm using E53, E51 and E50, and I'm just again laying in my darkest and moving out to my lightest. I will come back in again later here to add some little detail to the donuts as well, but I will show you that when we come to it. And I always say, when I do leave my colouring in, I always say I'm not the best at this. I am definitely improving, and I've definitely improved a huge amount from when I started. But as I say, most of my techniques and tricks have come from watching other people. I'm by no means an expert at this, but I just do what I think looks good and kind of go with it. So I always start with my darkest marker and move out to my lightest. Sometimes I will do 2 coats, sometimes I'll only do 1. Just depends on how it looks when I'm blending it out and whether I feel like it needs extra work. So yeah, just, kind of play around with your markers, look at what other people use for color combinations and what seems to work. That's how I pick up a lot of my techniques and tricks. So for some of my donuts here, I'm going to do like a strawberry kind of glaze on them. So I'm using R85, R83 and R81. I love these pinks for this kind of strawberry look, and I think it just looks really pretty. And I love this color combination that I've used today. In fact, I've probably used this color combination pretty much every time I've coloured these images, which isn't a huge amount. I do love these images though, and I have used them a couple of times. There is also a Mama Elephant Christmassy type set, which has the little like hot chocolates and hot cocos. I love that set. I also have that, and I pulled it out and was wondering if I could get it to work with this one, but I decided just to go with the milkshake and the donuts instead, and I figured that would work quite nicely. So once I've finished with the donuts, I'm going to add the pink in the other places where I need it. So on the straw really is pretty much the only other place I'm going to use that. And then I'm going to pull out some blues. So I have B01, B000, and B000. And I'm going to colour some of my donuts in this colour combination. Now, I did Google some donut images to give me some ideas. I didn't want them to be all pink and brown. I wanted to have another colour in there, and I decided to go with this blue colour. So here's where I'm adding some little detail to my donuts. I'm just using that E53 marker, and now that the E50 markers that I've used on there have dried off a little bit, I'm just adding some dot detail on to that with that darkest marker, just to kind of each edge of the donuts, and it just creates a little bit of interest there. Once that is done, I'm going in with the E50 again. Now this, for some reason, it had a load of black on the nib. I think it must have picked up some of the ink, and so I had to wipe it off there on the side, and I'm just using that to add a little bit of shadow to the cream. You can't really notice it, but just to the cream on top of the little chick and on top of that milkshake. Okay, next up are my two little critters. So for my little mouse, I'm using W3 and W1 to create a little grey mouse here. Again, just he's pretty tiny, so I'm just kind of going in. I did go back in with the W3 and add a little bit more shadow after I'd laid in the W1, just to kind of make it look a little bit more contrasted and stand out. Next up with my little chick here, I'm going to be, oh, sorry, I forgot the party hat on my mouse, which I'm going to use those same blue markers. I decided I didn't want to pull in any more colors with this. I'm obviously going to have a yellow chick here. But I'm going to balance that yellow out later on. You'll see what I do with that. But I'm using Y08, Y04, and Y11 for this. And he's just so cute, isn't he? I just love him. And I realized later on that I had forgotten to color his little beak. So I did go back in and do that later with YR16. But pretty quick colouring for most of this today. I am just adding some R20 onto their little cheeks there and into the little mouse's ears. And that is pretty much it done. I did add a little bit of W1 to the straw just to add in the kind of shading on the white parts of my straw. And that's my colouring done. But I am going to add some white Jelly Roll pen here just to create some little highlight details on all of my images. Because of the colours I've used, and that blue in particular and the yellow, the highlights don't really stand out on those areas. I did add it to everything. Yeah, but you can't really see much of it. It's just a course of habit now. I just kind of add it wherever. And again, I don't have any kind of real idea of how to do this properly. I just go with what I think works and hope for the best. So you can see on the glass there, I've done some diagonal marks across it to make it look like glass, to make it look like it's shiny. And I did that's where I added that YR16 to the little beak. And I'm just going to finish up with the little donuts as well. I will add some little white dots to the donuts around where I've already added that E53 marker as well, just to create a little bit more texture. Again, it doesn't show up a huge amount because of the light colors that I've used, but I know it's there. So I guess that's all that matters. So next up, I have my dies here. I used the largest die and then the kind of third largest, and I created a frame, and then I cut another backing piece, which I'm going to use to go behind my shaker. I decided to pull in some more yellow because I obviously have that yellow chick. He looks a bit lonely there, the only thing that's yellow. So I decided to use this Lawn Fawn Lemonade ink, which I thought matched pretty well with the colors that I've used on my little chick. And I'm just going to create a bit of a gradient, so darker in the middle, lighter towards the outside. It's a little bit messy, but it's not going to be seen a huge amount, so I'm not too bothered about it. I'm just kind of going in fairly roughly with this. And I am actually using Lawn Fawn 110-pound white cardstock here. I would normally use Bristol Smooth cardstock for ink blending, which does make a big difference. I find it a lot easier to ink blend on Bristol Smooth cardstock. But I just had the Lawn Fawn cardstock out, which is what I used to create that frame with. So I decided just to use it for the background as well. And as I say, most of it's going to be covered over, and I'm going to be doing some splatter detail, so it won't be seen a huge amount. So I have this white acrylic paint here. I put a dab onto my mat here, and I watered it down with some water, and now I'm splattering that all over my card panel and just creating some nice splatter detail. And again, it's not going to be seen a huge amount because it is in the background, but I just wanted to add that in there. Right, I'm placing both things into my stamp positioner, and I'm going to hold it down with my magnets. My back panel was a little bit warped because I did blast it with my heat tool to try and dry all the paint before I moved on. I was a bit impatient. And now I'm just pulling out my images again, placing them down so I can figure out where my sentiment is going to go. And I'm using this sentiment from the milkshake stamp set, which says for my sweetest friend, and I just thought that was really, really cute. So I'm lining it up, trying to get it nice and centered, and once I'm happy with that, I will go ahead and ink that down with some Versafine Onyx black ink. I remove all the pieces out before I do that so that I don't get ink smudged everywhere, which tends to be a habit of mine. And I'm just, as I say, going to stamp that down with Versafine Onyx black ink. And once I'm happy with that, I pulled out my frame again and I attached some acetate to it, and then it ran all the way around the edge of it with some foam tape. Now I'm just using my powder tool over everything to make sure it's not staticky and things aren't going to stick where they're not supposed to. I have two sets of Lucy's Little Things shaker mixes. This is called Cupcake, and I thought the pinks worked really well with the pinks in my card. And then I have this one called Splash, and again I thought those blues worked well with the blues that I've used in my card. If you know me, you know that I don't like to overfill shakers. I keep them fairly sparse. I like the way that they move better, but obviously do your own thing. If you like them chock-a-block, add more. I just like to keep them fairly sparse so that they move around nicely. I'm going to peel off all the backing tape from my foam pieces. I have to say a huge thank you to all the people who have given me suggestions for foam tape. It has definitely been working. I've been trying them out. I'm definitely getting better at this, but it's still not 100% right. But there we go. That's my shaker element all done, and I think it looks really cute. Now I just have to add my images on. So again, I'm going to pull them out here. I've got my two largest images on either side, to the left and right, and I'm just sticking everything down with some liquid glue today to make sure it's nice and secure. So popping that milkshake down onto the left-hand side, my donuts onto the right. I really wish I was one of these critters right now. I love chocolate milkshakes and I love donuts. So I'm going to go ahead and attach down my little critters. So I've got the little mouse and the donut next to the milkshake there, and then the little chicken next to the donuts. And that is the front of my card all complete. I just need to make a card base now, and I'm really happy with how this is looking. I think it's so, so cute. So shaking it around a bit because, of course, why not? So I pulled out a card base. I stamped out the sentiment there from the donut stamp set, along with that little mouse, and then I covered the front of my card base with some Lawn Fawn Flower Market paper. It's got this nice blue candy stripe type paper in there, and I thought it worked really, really well with my card. I did think about just going white on white, but I decided that this looked a bit better, and I'm glad I used it. I think it looks really, really cute. And that is it. My card is all complete. I had a lot of fun making this one today, and I think it turned out really, really sweet. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. And please do subscribe to my channel. I'd love to see you come back again. Thanks for joining me.